Thank you, fans. Irene and I are very pleased to welcome Craig officially to the family. That's officially, that is. Not forgetting his mum and dad, Jackie and Bert, who we know pretty well by now. After all, we're a few years down the line. Craig has promoted himself from Chinese delivery driver and is now a top man in IT, who is very handy to have around when your computer plays up. He's a nice guy.
You do so much for Karen and I, and you've always been the most wonderful grandparents to Tern. I know we probably owe you about 15 grand in childcare. Checks in the post. I'd also like to talk about another Sutherland family member, and that's Ivy Sutherland, Karen's beloved granny, who sadly we lost a few years ago. Ivy talked much of this day, and she would have loved to have been here. However, I know that before she died, she knew that Karen and I were already married in hearts and minds, and it was just a bit of paper that was missing. Don't cry, I need you to stand up for this bit. When you walked up the aisle today, you just totally took my breath away. might have been the nerves, but I think it was you. But to be fair to Karen, she does take my breath away quite a lot of the time. It's usually the day the credit card statement comes in. Right, I'm going to stretch my legs for a bit. It's just, I was a bit nervous at the start there, and I don't want to stand in a puddle all night. Karen and I obviously would like to apologise for keeping you waiting so many years for today's proceedings. As many of you know, we originally meant to get married in September 2003, but we also decided to buy a house in 2002, and basically we blew all our savings on that instead. So there we were in 2003, in our new house, and we thought about the wedding again. And we realised something important. We didn't have a flower girl. So we decided to grow our own. I'd also like to offer a massive thank you to all of you for the terrific wedding presents we've received. You've all spent far too much money, and Karen and I have agreed that's absolutely fine. I'd personally like to thank all the people that bought us Denby crockery, because I can't wait to go into John Lewis and swap it for a big telly. I'm joking.
No, he's not.
Maybe. My mum and dad are also fabulous grandparents, although Gran J may be to blame for Erin thinking that chocolate is a right rather than a privilege.
Nothing wrong with that.
She doesn't go into the fridge and take out 2 beers every time she comes to the house.
I'd now like to present the two mums with bouquets. And I can see my dad's been looking rather disdainfully at that whiskey miniature, so we've got something a bit bigger for him and Bob.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's worth coming now.
I've got a wee box of flowers for Aunt Mary and Ronnie as well. That'd be great. So, there has been a small army working to make today a success, but every army needs a general. Someone who is naturally bossy and is comfortable barking out orders. A wolf. Now, who could that be? Karen calls herself the frugal bride because rather than getting professionals in to do stuff, she prefers to do it all herself. I have to admit, and I'm sure you will all concur, what a fabulous job she's done. From those spectacular invitations that took her the entire Easter holidays to do, plus all the other wedding stationery, to all the flowers, the table decorations, labelling all the favours, gluing one at a time about 1,000 Swarovski crystals to her shoes, making tiaras for her and her bridesmaids, preparing welcome baskets for all the people staying at the castle, and the list just goes on and on. We'll be here all night. So, I would like to raise a toast to the hardest working bride I think there's ever been. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses. To Karen. I think I better go for another walk as I've got a few cheeky things to say about my wife coming up. I'd like to be a safe distance away when I do that. Not that she'll catch me in those heels. She's been working like a Trojan for months, and understandably she has been feeling the stress at times. It's not just the organisation of it all that's been getting to her. One day, about 6 weeks ago, she said to me, "Craig, how the hell are we going to pay for all this?" I suggested she start a swear box for herself. If only she'd taken my advice, we could probably have paid for Posh and Beck's wedding by now. Karen has all these qualities in abundance. If you're wearing a new outfit or sporting a new hairdo for the first time, not me obviously, she will always notice and tell you how great you look. She will enjoy your good news like it was her own, and she will lend a sympathetic ear to your tales of woe. She meets people and makes friends like no one else I know. She has a vivacious personality and it fills a room when she walks into it. As for when she laughs, well, that can fill several rooms.
Clear several rooms,
And the street outside as well. Stopped him.
I think that we do make a great team. We honestly can't remember the last time we had a row or a fallout. Now, some of you may argue, with a degree of merit, that's because I'm a big girl's blouse. But whatever the reason, I know we have the perfect mix of personalities to make a marriage work. We compliment each other every day, and we always know when to compromise. Although I get to do it more often, for some reason.
Thank you very much, Craig. And on behalf of the bridesmaids, I would like to say thank you for your kind words, and also the ushers. But I think everyone would agree that the bridesmaids have looked fantastic today. I'd sort of thought, I better go and rehearse this in front of an audience earlier on. And I've got a little old folks home down the bottom of my road. So I went in there on Wednesday, and it kind of went okay, I think, because most of them pissed themselves. So I think we'll be... Hopefully we'll be doing okay. There was only one time I had to pick up the phone and dial 999. And to give you an idea of how long ago this was, it was the last time Scotland won in a World Cup game. They were playing Sweden in 1990. And it involved a Botticelli of Stellas. And that's my sort of made-up name for a collective noun of 16 cans of Stella Artois. It all comes out now, doesn't it? It's like 20 years later, you can confess to these things. They just had the lounge done, you know, newly decorated, new carpet put in, and a new rug, big Persian rug thing, you know, and it looked lovely. And we thought, oh, you know, Craig's away with it. We couldn't wake him up. You know, he was unconscious. So we tried to get a pulse. Couldn't get a pulse. And we literally brought a mirror out and held it to his mouth, as if we were like medical experts, but we didn't have a clue. But we were getting really quite concerned. So it was a case of, right, yep, better phone the ambulance and get them here to have a look at this guy. But by the time the ambulance came, thankfully, he'd revived himself, had a look at the new carpet and thought, I want the patterned one back. Here we go. The first few years were really good. A lot of joy, a lot of happiness, everything going fantastically well. Then they had, I don't know whether it was 5 or 6 years into it, and they kind of had the will they, won't they moment. But since then, it's really been quite difficult. It's been a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of trouble. And Craig phoned me up earlier this year, And he phoned me up on a Monday morning, and I could tell he was really upset. I could sense the tears in his voice. And I said, Craig, do you not think it's time to maybe kind of move on? And he's like, no, when you commit for life, and you've got to stick together. But again, I've probably sort of talked about Aberdeen Football Club enough. When we were out in the stag do, at the end of the night, it was just Craig and I that were left, and we'd got a taxi back up the road. And he said to me, he goes, oh no, I've had my credit card stolen. And I thought, oh dear, that's not so good. I said, well, you better phone Barclaycard when you get back home. And he said, I will. And I sent him a text the following morning, make sure you phoned them and get this sorted out. And then when we caught up yesterday, I said, did you get sorted with your credit card? And he said, no, I was going to phone them, but I went online and whoever's stolen it is spending less than Karen, so I'm just going to leave it. There's a few cards to read out, particularly one. Craig's given me this. It's like the Krypton factor. He said, read this bit first and then turn it round and unwrap it. But wishing we could share your special day. Sorry we can't be there. Lots of love from down under. To the new Mr. and Mrs. Bruce, hip hip hooray. Lots of love from Mr. and Mrs. Bird. Is that all the way from Perth in Australia? Oh, how wonderful. To Craig, Karen, Erin, all the best on your big day from Gary, Cameron and Joe for Edinburgh. And there was one here as well. This is just to you, Craig. Wait till I get the grammar right in this. We wish you a wonderful life with lots of happiness. Irina and Eva from 11th Heaven's Lap Dancing Club in Glasgow. P.S. Would you like your credit card back? Actually, some of you might know it's 7th Heaven Lap Dancing Club, but when you spend the amount of money Craig did that night, you get to the penthouse. So I think that's me done. It's probably time for everyone just to get into the wine and the foods. But before we do that, I could ask you all to be upstanding and raise your glasses to Craig and Karen, Mr. and Mrs. Bruce.